As you all know, I love creating animations in Canva, but my obsession with it began with this first animation that I created, really just when I wanted to take a break from a brand project I was working on. The inspiration wasn't flowing, and I was browsing, doom scrolling as you do on my socials, and I came across an animation that was created in Figma, and I thought, I wonder if I can create that in Canva, which turned into this animation here. And now it's turned into being my highest viewing video on YouTube so far. So today what I wanted to do is I ended up using it for a client of mine. They are local to me in Glasgow and they have their own gin brand and they're called Ellis Gin. So watch me as I'll talk you through the steps again of how I have changed the animation and adapted it to suit a real brand so that they can use it on their socials and it looks really professional and lovely, and how I have adapted it and updated the design. If we take a quick look at the original animation again and I play it through for you, you can see that I've used imagery that's all within the Canva library and it was a standard gin bottle, but I really wanted to see if I could personalise this for Ellis Gin so that they can use it as an actual professional advert on their socials and on their websites. So if we go to the new animation, you can see there are some similarities and some small differences as well. So I very much leaned into their own branding, their fonts, their colours, and using obviously their bottles in their range. If I now play the new animation for Ellis Gin, you'll see that I am using their fonts, their colours for their branding and some of their brand elements, as well as obviously their own Ellis bottle gin range. And then at the end we have their logo appearing out of the flowers, which is very much on brand for them. So I have tailored the design a little, which again you very much want to do if you are taking inspiration from something you've seen. So even though I've used that initial animation, you can really see that I have already gave it its own unique look and feel just by adding in their own brand elements to this design. So I'm now going to break this down for you and do it step by step and show you how I created it. First of all, at the beginning, we haven't really changed that much, but I have just changed it to their own fonts and colours. But I have added in these circle elements, which are part of Ellis Gin's own branding. And then this time I have added in this distorted speckled background for some added texture, so it's not just on a plain background. And just to say, I am using the mobile video size for this design, and I'm also using the new blow up version of Canva. If you don't have the new Canva Glow Up yet, but they are going to be rolling this out gradually over the next few weeks and months, and any tutorials that I'm going to be doing from now on will be in this new interface design. So I have just added in gin. I'm using the Lovello font, and for time I am using Isom script, and I have just added a little typewriter animation here, and it's just going to appear on enter. And the speed is just under the halfway point there for the word gin. I've used one of Canva's new animation effects for text, which is called Succession, and I really like how the blur into focus effect, so I've used that instead. As well as the text, we need to add in the movement for the gin bottles. I just want to show you this reference mood board that I have for this particular animation design, and as you know, I really do like to create in the whiteboards first and gather all the elements I need, so I know what my main colours for the colour palette are going to be. I have my fonts, I have any elements that I need. I've already got the bottles cut out from their background so that I can easily grab them. Now these designs here, they are grouped, but if I ungroup them you can see that they are made up of different roots and leaves, and then I've just grouped them easily so that I can quickly grab it and insert it into my design. So these designs are from some social posts that I have designed previously for the Ellis brand, and I just thought these would be a really lovely addition to include inside the animation as well, because we can do a really nice carousel effect which will be a bit different from the original animation as well. So zooming back out, you can see that I've also grabbed the background that I've used in this video. Again, is grabbed from the video library inside Canva, some gradient backgrounds, and then just a couple of the pages that I'm going to have within the animation so that I can easily grab them and insert them into the design. I'm just going to grab the 3 bottles that I need for this design and copy them onto the page, and then what we're going to do is just angle them at 90 degrees. And first of all, I'm going to get the positioning right first before I hide them off the page so you can't see them. And I'm just going to make sure this bottle is exactly in the middle. Increase the size of these ones a little as well, make them a bit bigger. So once I'm happy with the position of them, what I'm going to do is just make sure they are sitting right off the edge of the page. And remember this, we are on the first slide in this animation, the first page. And I don't want to put it right off the edge because we'll lose the element, we can't grab it again. But it just needs to be slightly on the page so that I can grab it in the next slide, and move this one as well. So we've got a wee bit of space here that I can have it sitting completely off the page so you can't see it, but we can still grab it if we need to. And then the last one will move out the way. And then once we have the elements that we need on that page, I'm going to select the 3 wee dots and I'm going to duplicate the page. This time what I'm going to do is remove what we don't need from the page. So I'm going to take away time and the gin, and I don't want the speckled effect. If I just grab this whole page, you can see that the bottles are still there. Now what I'm going to do is grab the bottles and bring them in so they're now sitting on the page. Bring that one in and bring in the last one. I'm also going to darken down the background just so the bottles show up a bit more clearly. So I'm going to darken it down to a darker grey and reduce down the circles a bit more so they're not standing out so much against the background. And then what we're going to do is go between the 2 slides and add a transition, and it's going to be our match and move. And you can already see, if I just hover across these 2 pages, that the text is disappearing and the bottles are moving now into place, and that's what gives us that motion action. And that's us done our first animation. Then we will duplicate the page again, and this time we're going to remove the bottles we don't need because we just need to keep this one at the top, but we're going to change its position. So we're going to just angle it and turn it so it's standing upright, little in size. Now remember, when we enlarge it, that we have to do it from the corners. We can't change the actual ratio because that's what breaks the motion effect from working. Once it's in place that I want it to be, and it's good to mix up the colours of the backgrounds between the transitions because that's what helps us clearly see the steps in the transitions as well, and also keeps that interest when the background is constantly changing. I'm also going to change the size of the circles in the background just so we get a little bit of movement with that as well. I'm going to bring the word gin back in, so we go back to page 1 and I grab the text box, place it on top, change the colour, and then in between we go to add a transition and we'll add the match and move again. And now if I hover slowly across, you can see that the gin does move across. Now you can see once we've done that transition that the top bottle is now moving into the second position we want it to be in. And then we will duplicate the page again. I always find when you duplicate exactly the page before, this really helps us get the smoothest animations and less chance of the match and move transitions going wrong than building on separate pages and then trying to align them up. And then this time we will remove the bottle and move the gin into the middle. I'm going to add in this speckle effect back in here too and change the colour of the speckle to a darker colour, but I don't want the speckle texture to sit on top of the word gin, so we need to move the position of that and sit it underneath the text like so. I'm going back to the word gin. I'm also going to change the effect and give it the hollow outline. And I always reduce down this hollow outline because I find the standard thickness is just far too thick and I like it to have a bit more subtle effect than that. And again we go back in to our page transitions and add the match and move. And this time the animation effect is quite simple. We just want to see that text moving into place and turning into an outline. And I really like using just the outline in the solid colour for the fonts. It's a really lovely transition, but really effective. So already we have the text appearing and coming onto the page. We've got the gin bottles coming on, then the main one changing position, and then finally the text moving down in an outline. And that's has got 4 transitions built up already into a really lovely smooth animation. Then we're just going to add a bit of a change here. So again, we will duplicate the page, remove the elements we don't need. This time we're going to add the video. So I just went to videos and I searched falling strawberries, and when you hover across them they just start to briefly move, so you can see what the kind of effect is. And I didn't want something too slow like this one. That's far too slow because the animation in each slide is 1 to 1.5 seconds long, and you see here the strawberries are falling quite fast, and that's exactly the kind of speed I want for this part of the animation. I've just right clicked and I've clicked replace background, but I've then moved it across slightly just so there's much more of the strawberries in the current view, and clicked done. It's 10 seconds long though, so it's too long. I'm going to bring it down and crop it down to about 2 seconds. We can't really see the gin outline now that it's in that light pink, so a quick transition is just to change it to the dark colour, add match and move. So we've got the gin moved into place, the outline, and then it transitions into the moving video animation. And it's really effective to jump between some video and some imagery and some text animations, and when you join that all together, that's what really gives you a really dynamic finish to your design. The next step is just adding a really quick transition here. So again, I'm going to duplicate the page. We can remove the video. I'm going to change the colour of the background. I'm going to make it light pink now, and we're going to change the text back to solid and change the colour to the kind of dark salmony pink. This time we will reduce down the size quite a bit, place it at the top corner, and then we're going to introduce some more text, this time in the script font. So grab a text box. For this font we're going to use ISOM script, and I want to have it sitting over 2 lines, and I'm just going to quickly reduce the line spacing a little between it, and then I'm just going to slightly angle the text as well. And for the colour, I'm going to choose a really dark blue. I'm going to have this sitting just underneath the gin, and I want to add a little bit of animation, so I'm going to make this the typewriter again, just so I can have it look like it's appearing on letter by letter, and it just wants to animate on enter, not on exit. Need to reduce down the length of this slide because I say we want this to be a quick transition, and again add in the match and move. And if I just quickly slide over that, you can see the gin moving into place, and then Handcrafted with love just appearing on the top of it. Then we will duplicate that page again, and this time we want to gin bottle appearing from underneath, and we've also got this circle element added in as well. So again, we're just going to go back to our whiteboard, and I'm just going to grab the gin bottle that we need. Now on the first page, if we add the gin bottle, now because this one has the boundary box going right to the edge of the lid, we're going to see that when we have it hidden on the page before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a box, doesn't matter what colour it is, and we're just going to align it to the top of the other box. We are going to make it transparent, and then we're going to select both at the same time and group them. So all that's done now is it's gave us a bigger boundary box. So now when I place this down in the bottom, we cannot see the bottle, but if I let it go, I can still grab it again. So this is on the first page. And I also just want to adjust the sizing so that the petals are breaking off the edge of the page, like so, and then we will move it down into position so it's hidden and you can't yet see it. On the second page, we want to move the bottle first into position. I'm going to add a little gradient into the background. So just grab a square box and go to my colours, and I'm going to choose a gradient, and it's just one single colour of the darker pink, and I have made the second colour completely transparent. And you do that by moving this toggle here. So it was white and I've now moved it down to 0. And I'm just going to turn this around so it's the other way. Move it down to the bottom and then using the layer to send it to the back. So now this just gives us a nice subtle darker pink in the background. And I also need to add in the circle element. So again, I go back to my reference board. I'm going to grab the circles, copy it onto the page, and I'm going to really enlarge this up so that we only see a couple of the circles. And at the top, again, change the colour. And again, we just have to change the position so that it sits underneath the gin, just on top of the background. And I might even just reduce the transparency ever so slightly, just so the text is better to be seen. So that's us got that page there. All we need to do now is add the transition. And again, it is the match and move. And if I hover across, you can see the circles appearing and the bottle moving up into place. If we copy and paste this page again, one thing to check as well is when you duplicate the page that you remove the animation from the second page. So I'm going to remove the animation, and it's just because you don't want to have the typewriter text animation repeating. You only want it to happen on the first page. And this time we are going to change the colour of the background. And if you notice that I'm trying to grab the background here and I can't quite place it because there's so many other boundary lines across here for the other elements. So if you go to position, the easiest way to grab the background is just to select that layer, and then I can go into colours and I can change the colour of the background. So I've now made it the kind of darker pink. I'm going to reduce down the circles so they're barely visible. I'm going to move the circles down and then just change the colour of the text so the text stands out more on this background as well. Then we will add our match and move. And if I just slowly scroll over, you can see now that second transition has happened just with the change of colour and changing the text. So you can see how we're quickly building up all these different elements, but broken down, they're really quite simple. Next, we're going to go into our kind of carousel effect. So again, we've got, if you can see here, a really short transition happening here. So this page I'm just going to make about 1 second in length. And you may have to adjust the timings. Once you start playing it through, you can see, well, that's a bit fast, that's going a bit slow. And this is where you can start to edit the timings of the transitions. And again, you'll notice if you go into the actual animations, you can actually influence the length and duration of the match and move, which I will do near the end. I like to get all of the different pages in place and the animation set up and working, and then I start fiddling with the timings of each of the transitions. So I will do my duplicate, and this time I'm wanting the page to kind of slide, I want the bottle to slide off to the left, so I'm just going to have that going right off at the edge there, and I'm going to reduce down the timing of the slide to just 0.5 of a second and add in the transition. So now you can see that all that's happening is that bottle is disappearing off to the left. As a designer, I really love to showcase just how amazing Canva is to use. I use Canva to create my graphics, my videos, my animations for my clients in my work every single week. And I love to really showcase just how professional you can really make the finished assets. And not only do I love to showcase all of that stuff on here on my channel, but also inside my Animation Academy. Inside the Academy is in-depth tutorials and animations that you can recreate for your own business, or if you are a budding designer and want to learn how to make animations in Canva. And I also include the Canva template, so use it right alongside my tutorials, or dive in and dissect and see how I've done the timings and the transitions. And not only that, I also include the whiteboard references as well, become an amazing space to be able to break off the page and have different parts of designs, the colours, the fonts, all the different elements that I'm using. Some of the wireframes for the more complex animations are all on there, so I can then copy them across into design. It really helps my workflow and my process. Here is a little sneaky peek inside the Academy. My Animation Academy will have 10 full tutorials inside it, as well as some of the Canva templates and my background workings, the whiteboards to show you or the whiteboards to show you where I get my inspiration from and how I gather all my elements, colour palettes and fonts. Now let's get back to showing you how I created the rest of this animation. Duplicate the page, and this time we will get rid of the text and the gradient and then delete that image off the edge as well. We will change the background back to our light grey, and we're going to add our speckle effect back in that we had in our first slide. And then I'm going to grab these really nice mock-up shots, I suppose we would call them, with the ingredients that are inside the gin to really highlight the flavours of each of the gins. So the first one, just going to put into place so it's sitting in the middle. And then remember, because this is our first one, we have to actually put it on the previous page. So if we go back here and a copy paste in place, but I'm going to have it sitting right off just at the edge, so we can't see it but it's there, but it means when we add the match and move, it'll move into place. So now if we add it in match and move, you can see that it's now sliding in. Then we need to add our second one before we duplicate. So if we go back into our reference mood board, we'll grab the gin, copy and place. I'll just reduce down the sides so that the bottles are similar sizes to each other. So, and again, we need this one to be sitting right barely there off to the edge. Then we will duplicate this page, and this time we need to reduce down, and remember again, grab from the corner and move it up to the top, and the second one moves into the middle. Add our match and move. If I just hover across to see if it works, now we have that first bottle moving up to the top left and the second one sliding in, which is perfect. Then we need to add the third one. So back to the reference board, grab the bottle, bring it in, just adjust the sizing as we need. And again, this one needs to sit right off the edge, and then we can duplicate that page. We can move this one up to the right position, and we can move that one over to the side like so, and then this one into the middle. And then we need to grab our last one, so just copy and paste just the sizing, the same steps as before, just off the page, and then we can duplicate, and then we're going to just move this one in front, just this one down in size, just adjust the spacing ever so slightly as we need, and move the last one to the middle, and then add our transitions. And again, I like to hover across slowly for each one just to make sure everything's moving as I want, that the layers and positions are right, nothing's fading in and out because it's going behind a layer I don't want it to. And this is all working fine, so I'm happy with that. But you'll see that these are really short transitions, so I'm just going to make these a bit longer, otherwise they will happen far too fast. So you can see there is quite a lot of tweaking that we have to do just to get the timings exactly right, because it's finessing the times and the transitions that really elevate this to look like a really professional animation. And then we want to add in this montage effect. Now this is their logo that I've used in a different design, and you can see there's lots and lots of layers here, with some of the flowers sitting in front of the letters and some sitting behind. That's a whole other tutorial that I could show you, but I'm just literally going to grab everything to just show you how the animation effect works here. So if I grab all of that, and I'm just going to insert a new page here because we're not actually taking any of the previous pages animations across, so it's a completely new design and I'll have a different anim between it. And I'll just make sure I'm sizing this up correctly. Before this last few slides, I'm actually going to work backwards. So I'm going to start off with my end slide, which has the Ellis logo sitting kind of in front and behind with multi-layered like flowers. So it's quite a complex montage, as you can see from all the different elements we have on here. And this is taken from a graphic that I've designed for a previous social post, but it's a really lovely end slide to use. I'm going to duplicate it, and on the second to last slide I am going to move the LS right down so that it's hidden and you can't see it yet in the flowers. And I'm going to add the match and move transition. So now you can see that the LS is moving up nicely. If we duplicate that page again and we go to the first slide, I'm going to eliminate off a lot of the elements we don't want because I want this page to be quite simple. So if I just start deleting some of the flowers, I just want to have a couple of the flowers sitting on here. And I don't need the logo. If I can't select anything, I'm just going to click on the layer. I'm going to move these flowers down just so we can get a little bit of animation between the first and second slide. So we don't need that one. I found the bee inside elements. I think I typed in fuzzy bumblebee, and this one is a really nice one. It's an illustration and there's a couple of different styles of this bee. So we reduce it back down and we go to animate and we go to create an animation. And this time we're just going to draw a wiggly path. As you can see, it's starting to move, but we can tweak this a little. So I'm going to change it to steady and also orient to path. And this just helps to kind of like look like the bee's actually moving in direction and not just stiffly moving across the page. And when you're happy with it, you can click done. And then what you want to do is just make sure that you're roughly placing the bumblebee in exactly the place that it stopped in the previous slide. You can see it's going across, it's going to land on the sunflower, and then some of those flowers are going to move up in place as the other ones come in and around it. And then lastly, we have the Ellis logo emerging from the flowers, and it gives us that really nice effect. But it works so much better when you start with the end slide and work back and delete than trying to make sure you're adding everything in the right position. We're going to add a slightly different transition to this page from the others, and we're going to add in flow. And this is just because we're not using anything from the previous page design. We're starting off with a completely different slide, so I like to mix up the animations that we use there. Now if I play this now, we are going to find that some of the transitions are happening a bit too fast or a bit too slow. And now I like to play it through in full, just so I can see, as you can see, they're all happening a bit fast. And this is where I'm going to go back in and just tweak. So here, although the length of the page is fine, the actual duration is just 0.2 of a second, which is far too short. So I'm just going to go in and click and change the duration to be a bit longer. And the same in some of the other pages that I felt were a bit too short, I will increase the length of the transition. And again, I'm just going to play that through, and sometimes you can get the animations happening really quickly and really well, or you might need to tweak the timings back and forth slightly. That one still went a bit quick, did you notice that? So if I just check, look how that one's still short in the middle than the other two are. So again, change that back, and now it'll transition all at the same time. And I'm going to just make this last one 2.5 seconds long, just because it's our last slide and we want that to stay in place for a bit longer. So now we have, when we play it through from the start, all the transitions are in place, the text animations, the imagery, as well as the video, and it gives us that really lovely animation to our design. And this design can be used in socials, it can be used on websites, and it can be shared with clients, etc. And it just turns into a really beautiful finished product that you can use time and time again.